Good afternoon, or good morning, or good evening, depending on where you are listening today. Thank you all for joining me today for the fifth of our Columbia CBIPS lectures series on social justice and the AEC industry. I'm Fenioski Peñamora, Executive Director of Columbia Center for Buildings, Infrastructure, and Public Space, and Edwin Howard Armstrong Professor of Civil Engineering and Engineering Mechanics at Columbia's True Foundation School of Engineering and Applied Science. As the events of last month have demonstrated, we are living during exceedingly challenging times, characterized by divides, distrust, and distancing. However far apart we have been, however far apart we currently are, we need to learn to come together, to be together, to act together for social, economic, and environmental justice. I hope that the events of these days bring better understanding of the injustices that exist and become a catalyst to bring about real change for all. Along with many of our colleagues in New York City and around the world, the faculty and staff of the Center for Buildings, Infrastructure, and Public Space would like to add our voices to those decrying institutionalized racism in the AEC industry. Today, our industry has challenging work ahead to achieve through racial and gender inclusion. We stand with our architects, engineers, contractors, and suppliers from underrepresented and marginalized communities. We need to listen better, to learn better, and to incorporate the lessons of diversity and distress into the way we, working together, can reshape economically challenged communities. We need to build a better future for our industry characterized by respect, opportunity, and collaboration. From mid-May to early September, our COVID-19 lecture series brought people together to address the impact, response, recovery, and preparedness of the architecture, engineering, and construction community in regard to the coronavirus pandemic. The talks also related to issues of social, economic, and environmental justice to the new normal post-COVID-19 AEC world. Our speaker in that series came from Beijing, Boston, Chicago, London, Los Angeles, Paris, Porto Alegre, Sao Paulo, Seoul, Washington, D.C., Wuhan, as well as New York City. The 19 weekly lectures in the series can be seen on our website, cbips.engineering.columbia.edu. Today, as we continue our series on social justice and the AEC industry, I would like to thank the organization with whom we are collaborating in presenting these lectures. These are the American Council of Engineering Companies, New York. I would like to thank Jay Simpson for the support. The American Institute of Architects, New York chapter. I would like to thank Ben Prosky and Suzanne Mex for their support. The American Society of Civil Engineers, I would like to thank Tom Smith and Yvette Pearson. The Consortium for Sustainable Urbanization, I would like to thank Lance Brown. Engineering News Record, I would like to thank Jan Tuckman. And the National Academy of Construction, I would like to thank Wayne Crew, as well as Nycetc NOMA, the National Organization of Minority Architects based here in New York. I would like to thank Samantha Jospat and Gregory Schweitzer. The inaugural speaker in the Social Justice Series was Justin Garrett Moore, the Executive Director of the New York City Public Design Commission and an activist with the Black Space Collective. Susan Mex, the Managing Director of AIA New York, was the co-moderator and respondent. The second speaker in the series was Mindy Thompson-Fulilov, a social psychiatrist and professor of urban policy and health at the New School. Gregory Schweitzer, founder of Schweitzer Architecture and president-elect of Nycetc NOMA, was the co-moderator and respondent. The third speaker was Kerry Scott, Global Practice Leader for Social Inclusion at Mac McDonald, Alexandra Wagner, a civil engineer at Mac McDonald and a 2020 Columbia Engineering graduate, was the co-moderator and respondent. Last week's speaker was Dr. Yvette Pearson, Associate Dean for Accreditation, Assessment, and Strategic Initiatives in the George R. Brown School of Engineering at Rice University, and founder of the Pearson Evaluation and Education Research Group, the PEER Group. The co-moderator and respondent was Dr. Lisa Black, the Director of Cultural Belonging and Social Ethos at the American Society of Civil Engineers. A video recording of all of these talks in the series are on our website, www.cbips.engineering.columbia.edu. My co-moderator today is Chelsea Lemar, the Executive Director of Professional Women in Construction. PwC is a 501c3 organization dedicated to empowering and promoting women in the construction and related industries who have contributed in innovative ways and those who have pushed the status quo. To achieve these ends, Chelsea's mission has been to build an industry-inclusive community of men and women focused on supporting these professional women to succeed in the business through networking events, a scholarship and mentorship program, and providing resources and guidance to minority and women-owned businesses. Previously, Chelsea served at the United States Department of Transportation, where she worked on discretionary grant programs, including high-speed rail and the Transportation Investment Generating Economic Recovery Grant, TIGER grants. She has a master's degree in public administration from the London School of Economics and Political Science. Chelsea, thank you for being here, and the floor is yours to introduce our speaker.
Thank you so much, Finiaski. That's lovely. Thanks. That's an awesome introduction. I don't ever hear that much about myself anymore. So thank you so much. And I'm very happy to be joining you today. Thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be part of this and part of your series. So thank you so much. I'm just going to jump right in. The scheduled speaker today was meant to be Kathleen Culhane. And Kathleen is the president of non-traditional employment for women. And unfortunately, Kathleen cannot join us today. And instead, we'll hear from Kate Krug, who's the Vice President of Development and Communication at Non-Traditional Employment for Women. Kate holds a master's degree from Columbia University, and she's previously worked for services for the underserved. She's very impressive background, and we're excited to have her here speaking with us today, and I'm excited to have the conversation. Founded in 1978, NEW prepares, trains, and places women in careers in the skilled construction, utility, and maintenance trades. NEW has placed thousands of women in careers in the construction, energy, transportation, and facilities maintenance industries. Kate, thank you so much. I'm going to pass it over to you to let you give the presentation.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Chelsea. Thank you also to Columbia. This is amazing to be here with all of you today, to have this experience and to share with you some information about NEW. And then in a few moments, I'll be able to introduce Jose Ortiz Jr., CEO of Nycetc, to share some information with you as well. I'm a proud Columbia alumna, so thank you for sharing that, and I'm very excited to be here today. As you mentioned, Kathleen is out and unable to join us today, and she sends her regrets. She really wishes that she could be here, but I'm happy to jump in. I am the Vice President of Development and Communications at Non-Traditional Employment for Women, or NEW, as we like to share it. I have been there for about a year and a month or so, and it's been an exciting time, especially to get thrown right to the fire with COVID-19 and the pandemic and what it's meant to the construction industry, the employment industry, and our tradeswomen. So as Chelsea mentioned, NEW prepares, trains, and places women in careers in the skilled construction, utility, and maintenance trades. We're helping women to achieve economic independence and secure future for themselves and their families. We're providing them with what we like to call transformative careers, living wages, and helping them get placed into union apprenticeships. So a little bit about NEW's history. So we're about 40 years old, established in 1978, and we've been a groundbreaking model that works for women in New York City. We provide a no-cost training program that gives women the skills and knowledge they need to begin careers in using tradeswomen. We're committed to changing the lives of women, providing the opportunity to move out of poverty and into prosperity, into the middle class through careers in the trades. Over the past 42 years of hard work and dedication, NEW has pushed the meter from 2% to 7% women represented in trade careers in New York City. And in the last 10 years alone, NEW has placed women in over 3,000 industry careers. As you can see here by our graph, which we can make available to you afterwards if you need, you can see the different types of trades that NEW women are placed into, and where there's more attrition and where there's still some work to be done. But we're really proud of our partnership with the trades in New York City and really happy about what we've been able to establish. Sarah, if you can move to the next slide. So on average, NEW has about 350 students enroll each year, of which 75%, about 275 of those new graduates graduate and then are placed into construction apprenticeships. So, and though our construction apprenticeships are cyclical, there's a little leeway in between each time there's placements. There's hourly starting wages of new graduates on average are about $19 to $20 an hour. And union placements, which is the most important part, come with comprehensive benefits. They come with pension, annuity, and protection. In the last decade alone, as I've mentioned, NU has placed over 3,000 women in construction-related careers, and we've partnered with over 150 employer partners, 36 of which are unions and apprenticeships. So these are large numbers that are really helping to transform the lives of women in our construction trades. Sarah, if you could move to the next slide. So a bit about NU's programs. We have several different programs which have really what I like fun and catchy names. First of all, our core program is Blue Collar Prep, or as we call it, BCP, and that it has its sister program, New at Night. Both of these programs are offered throughout the year, in which we have cohorts of anywhere from 22 to 26 women that join us. Blue Collar Prep is run during the day. New at Night, of course, is for those women that have challenges or they have things going on or commitments going on during the day and they're unable to join us. So they join us on the night and then at night and then Saturdays as well. We have a new initiative, which is Green Collar Prep. It puts a green and sustainable lens to our Blue Collar Prep classes. We find that the more training, the more knowledge and accessibility that we give to our tradeswomen, our prospective tradeswomen, to exceed and excel, makes them more likely to be hired or brought on to these jobs as they see that they have their OSHA 10, they have their OSHA 30, they know about sustainability, they know about what it means to help retrofit a building. So we want to give them all the advantages that we can. And Green Collar Prep is one of the newest and most important ways that we're able to do that. Of course, we also have boot camp to give people a taste of what it's like to be a new student. So that's a 2-week course that just shares with prospective students what it could be like to be taking some of our classes, whether that's trades math or site safety training, or just learning how to do the lift and carry, in which they're learning how to lift about 65-pound buckets of cement. And then, of course, we have advanced training for those that graduate our Blue Collar Prep, New at Night, or Green Collar Prep programs. The advanced training can help you with probably like local 3 electrician tests to get into the apprenticeship programs. We have advanced training that goes for welding. We have advanced training that goes for site safety management training. There's a plethora of advanced training options that we offer throughout the course of the year. As COVID-19 hit New York City and began to affect our tradeswomen, we noticed that there was more that NU needed to do in order to support our tradeswomen with our social services. We did a relief surveying tradeswomen, asking them about their most pressing needs. And what we found is that around March time, about 65% of them were out of work. 11% of them didn't have access to medical coverage. Another percentage didn't have access to mental health supports. There was another amount of women that were worried about how they were going to pay their current needs, whether it was utility or rent. So NU, along with a lot of their foundation partners, got together and we raised cash assistance in order to not only bolster our social service supports, but to help our tradeswomen in need and to help them get ready to be out back into the field. So as jobs are coming back and we're hearing back about more opportunities, in fact, we've placed 48 women over the past 3 months or so as the trades are opening up and construction sites are open again. We're able to help them with things like union dues or transportation or paying their rent so that they don't have to worry about paying for Metro cards. We want to make sure that we're alleviating stresses that have compounded because of COVID-19 and make sure that we're still getting them back out on the job, out into the field. I'm also happy to announce that we've shifted most of our programming virtually. So while we were fully hands-on training, we're now 65% virtual, 35% in person. We have a great shop in Industry City in Brooklyn, in which we're able to give the last 2 weeks of training hands-on, in which we're helping women get their hands on some tools and learn some of the things that they'll need for their apprenticeships before they go out there. We've had 9 classes since start. In this remote hybrid shift, 2 classes have graduated. 1 will graduate in 2 weeks. We've had, as I mentioned, 48 placements, and our information sessions, in which we're seeing a huge uptick in interest of women that are interested in joining us as you know, we've seen the retail industry, the restaurant service industry, hospitality industry decline. Women were the first to be let go. And so they're coming to new to find these transformative careers. And we've had about, of our information sessions, which are twice a week, 350 plus women who are interested in new join our information sessions. So it's been amazing. If you want to join, if you want to be able to join new, our eligibility is quite simple. You have to be 18 years or older, a high school diploma or equivalent. You have to be interested in hands-on training. New welcomes women, transgender, non-binary individuals to register. There is no average student. There's no maximum age range. And new students that are often low income are offered a plethora of social service supports. So thank you for letting me share this information about new. At this moment, I'd like to introduce Jose Ortiz Jr., the Chief Executive Officer of New York City Employment and Training Coalition, of which we affectionately call NYCETC. Jose has been a longtime partner and champion of NEW's programs. NEW is thrilled to be working alongside NYCETC in its support of the workforce and economic development community in New York City. This year, NEW's president, Kathleen Culhane, was named NYCETC's board chair, and we look forward to our continued collaboration. I'll now turn it over to Jose to speak on NYCETC's and their recent powerful report about the recommendations called Recovery for All, which represents a vision for an equitable recovery in New York City.
Thanks, Kate. It's a pleasure to be with you all today. I am not a proud Columbia graduate, but I am the spouse of a proud Columbia graduate. So I'm in good company today. As Kate mentioned, my name is Jose Ortiz Jr., and I'm the Chief Executive Officer of the New York City Employment and Training Coalition, or NYCETC. Next slide, please. A bit of background on NYCETC. We support the workforce and economic development community to ensure that every New Yorker has access to the skills, training, and education needed to thrive in the local economy, that every business is able to maintain a highly skilled workforce. NYCETC's membership is composed of nearly 180 workforce providers, education institutions, and labor management organizations that provide job training and employment services to nearly 600,000 New Yorkers, making us the largest city-based workforce development association in the country. Founded in 1997 as a membership organization and the voice of a strong and diverse community of New York City workforce providers and participants, NYCETC works with policy leaders and elected officials at the city, state, and federal level to advance policy priorities and convenes the sector, including business and philanthropic leaders, to build capacity by sharing information and best practices. Next slide, please. It's already been said, but the work we're doing here could not be more important or more urgent. The current crisis has decimated the communities that our organizations support, and it's clear that workforce development and the unique role that it plays connecting our communities with private industry is more essential than ever before. I'm going to focus on our effort we undertook to develop our most recent report and a set of recommendations called Recovery for All, which is our vision for an equitable recovery here in New York City. Next slide, please. In April of this year, we announced the formation of the New York Workforce Recovery Strategy Group, an organized effort of over 80 leaders from the private and nonprofit sectors, including job training providers, labor unions, small and large businesses, human service organizations, advocates, and research institutes to create a space for a solutions-oriented discussion to the current economic challenges. Next slide. Over 2 months, the members were assigned 4 subcommittees and developed recommendations for the city's recovery in the following areas. The first being education and training ecosystem for the displaced workforce and marginalized communities. The second, rebuilding through public works and direct public employment. The third, relief programs for individuals and hard-hit communities. And the fourth, recovery for small businesses and nonprofits and support for business development. Next slide, please. Following the development of that strategy group in April, civil unrest over the current and historically unequal treatment of Black and brown people by institutions and systems of power made it abundantly clear that New Yorkers want a stronger safety net and an economy that proactively works to build up the many, not just the few. To ensure that sentiment was carried over into our recommendations, we developed the following guiding principles that are the basis of our final report. 1, back to normal is simply not good enough. Normal for many millions of New Yorkers meant multiple low-wage jobs with little mobility to access to healthcare or other benefits, little economic security, and unsafe working conditions. A stronger and inclusive economy that ensures job quality, career mobility, living wage pay, and benefits, as well as stable schedules and safe working conditions must be the new starting line. 2, we must prioritize and collaborate with impacted communities. To do so, we must ensure that programs and investments prioritize the communities, individuals, and small businesses that have been hardest hit by the pandemic, and particularly those facing historic marginalization and disinvestment. We must work in collaboration with community-based organizations and local stakeholders to build policy, programs, and investments, enabling innovation, not simply regulation. And 3, no austerity budgeting. We must invest in a sustainable economy built from the bottom up. Rebuilding New York City's economy with a focus on its workforce and small businesses is an investment in our future economy and tax base, not simply an act of charity. An equitable recovery plan must reprioritize and redirect resources towards community investments through a combination of new revenue streams and increased cuts in other portions of the city budget. Next slide, please. Within these 4 subcommittees, dozens of recommendations were made. Under the first pillar, education and training ecosystem for displaced workforce, a few recommendations include: 1, develop, expand, and fund workforce programs that meet immediate relief efforts, including transitional employment, wage subsidy, work-based learning programs, and apprenticeships. 2, use a local outreach and referral network to support targeted local hiring in the hardest hit communities. 3, we need to integrate workforce development into all economic development efforts and develop innovative and sustainable funding sources that link each of them together. And 4, create a system-wide 21st century workforce development system focused on training, upskilling, infrastructure and education, supports for a post-COVID economy. Next slide. Under the second pillar, rebuilding through public works and direct public employment, we believe that New York City can leverage this moment of crisis by initiating a robust public works strategy. A few of the recommendations include: 1, invest in accelerated public projects to repair and build public infrastructure. 2, invest in long-term infrastructure projects to create equitable opportunity. And 3, invest in potential projects, including broadband installation and digital infrastructure, repairs, enhancements, and greening of Nycetc facilities, public transportation, the Cleaner and Greener New York Plan, public health infrastructure, childcare infrastructure, and social and opportunity infrastructure. Next slide, please. Under the third pillar, we believe that relief programs for individuals and hard-hit communities need to be expanded to support New Yorkers who continue to struggle from the health and economic fallout caused by the pandemic. A few of the recommendations included: 1, provide direct cash assistance to individuals and families in neighborhoods most affected by COVID-19, including consideration for testing historically underserved communities, particularly those that were most impacted by the COVID-19 health pandemic. And 2, provide expanded tax credit options to all low-income New Yorkers, such as expanded New York State Earned Income Tax Credit and Child and Dependent Care Tax Credit. Finally, and this is on the next slide, please. Under the fourth and final pillar, recovery for local small businesses and nonprofits and support for new business development. Our recommendations call for supporting small businesses in the most flexible possible ways. Small businesses make up the majority of New York City's workforce, and the city employment base urgently needs the successful reopenings of as many businesses as possible. A few of the recommendations included: 1, provide free or low-cost technology and technical expertise to local businesses. 2, use wage subsidies to promote small businesses, including inclusive hiring. And 3, restructure the workforce system to better serve small businesses and incentivize training and employment partnerships. Next slide. I'll be here obviously to answer questions, but to learn more about those recommendations provided in the report, please visit us at nycetc.org/recovery4all, or feel free to contact me directly. Thanks again for the opportunity to share the work here today.
Thank you, Jose, for sharing everything that NYCETC is doing to support New Yorkers in need, especially at this time right now. What I'd like to share with all of you on the call right now is how you can get involved with NEW. And I'll also share, I'll ask Jose to share his email address as well. But if you'd like to get involved with NEW, whether it's to hire a new graduate or to become a new signature project, which is one of the ways that we're able to work with corporate partners in New York City to build up opportunities for tradeswomen to get on the job. And that's when we work with, say, a Chase or a Citibank or HSBC to when they start with their ground up supports to create a new building, or even if they're doing renovation, something internal, we start with contracting you and talking about what it means to have tradeswomen hours built into your conversations of subcontractors. And to be a new signature project, we ask that you commit to a goal of 15% tradeswomen hours on a project. What that means is that you're helping us get boots on the ground, women into sustainable careers, and having also sharing them an ability to have a long-term placement. So new signature projects are a huge way that everybody can help with non-traditional employment for women. If you're interested in hosting what we like to call a new to new, which is similar to this, what we're doing right now, or a new conversation in which we have a panel in which we talk about things such as getting back to work or what diversity, equity, and inclusion means on the job site, we'd love to talk to you about that as well. And you can reach out to me. My email is kkrug@new-nyc.org. But also if you have any opportunities that you'd like to talk about with NEW in general, happy to share that. And Jose, if you could share your email address with everybody.
Yes, and my email address is jortiz@nycetc.org.
Thank you. So happy to turn it back to the team at Columbia now. Thank you for having us share all this information.
Hi, Kate. Hi, Joey. Excuse me. Yes, I'm excited to co-moderate with Finiaski. So I'm going to jump in with my first question. First of all, just a quick introduction. You know, I know Finiaski gave one at the beginning. I'm the Executive Director of Professional Women in Construction. And our mission is to support and advance women in the industry. We're much more focused on the professional side. And so we're working with our membership is based on, is a lot of architects, construction managers, engineers, more on the professional side than new. And part of the mission, part of my goal is that any organization who promotes and advances women we promote and advance as well. So we always support new, we're always talking about you, and we're always excited to hear what you're doing. And you do such incredible work. So it's such a pleasure to be part of it. Today. So I do want to jump in. Kate, I was going to ask you, how can the more professional side help new, and support, and you just answered that. So I guess we'll go on to the next question, which I think is along the same line, in your opinion, of course, there's always this ability to talk and support and get, and also get kind of the sponsored projects and all of that. Is there other things that people can do just to help NEW's mission and advance what you're doing? Oh, you're on mute.
I'll never get used to that. I think at the very basics, in order to help NEW and in order to advance our mission, I think is just to share our message, share our information, go to our website, join our mailing list, share our newsletters that we send out. Think about what work you're doing if you happen to be in the construction related industry, in which you can hire a new graduate. We don't only have opportunities for women in the trades, but we also have building maintenance and total facility operations, in which we have women that are trained and ready to go and work in the building once the construction is complete. So those are things to think about there too. We have, also very simply too, we're always looking for people to support us in different ways. If you know of a foundation, or if you know of an individual that's interested in supporting women in the trades or tradeswomen right now, you can always go to NEW's website and make a donation. And of course, participating and joining organizations like NYCETC, in which now it's the entire New York City coming together to work on workforce development and to bolster that type of conversation and commitment to one another. That's also incredibly important.
Again, I just want to thank you. Again, thank you, Chelsea, for co-moderating. And I would like to thank again Kate and Jose, Joey, for your presentation, and very informative and gave us a lot of food for thought in terms of what is possible and what we can all do together, like you're saying, to ensure that whatever recovery is a recovery for all. And we have a question from one of the participants, Eve Michelle. She is a project executive as well as the chief architect at the MTA Construction and Development. And her question, and I will actually add some to it. Her question is that union and trades are usually less receptive to female workers than others. And, you know, and the question is, what are you doing to help educate, socialize these trades so that they recognize the value added, as well as to make sure that the work environment is open and encouraging for non-traditional workers? And my modification to this question, or my addition to this question, is that, you know, as you were presenting, Kate, you know, during COVID, in the March, April, we saw a reduction of employment. A lot of people were, because of the New York Post and other efforts to contain the pandemic, a lot of workers were in unemployment. And now it's coming back, you know, is there a competition on those placements from the traditional workers and the justification of bringing the non-traditional workers to work there? How are you socializing those concepts together to ensure that everybody is able to participate fully as much as they can?
Sure. So we've been long advocates and partners with the building trades in New York City. Previously, the goal nationwide was 6.9% women trade hours on a job. New York City took it upon themselves to up that to 10%. So as a community, we decided that 6.9% was not enough and that it should be 10%. And at about 2 years ago, New, along with the building trades, came to an agreement together to increase that by an additional 50%. So that is 15% tradeswomen hours is the goal for construction sites in New York City. And of course, there's been major announcements over the past couple of months as we were talking about an equitable recovery for all that we've heard from the PLA that recently came out that said that 30% of those that would be hired for New York City jobs would be from low income zip codes, the 53 zip codes that they pointed out, and those from groups that have been disproportionately impacted by COVID-19. And that's where non-traditional employment has been able to step in and step forward and be advocates and ambassadors for our tradeswomen that were on the bench waiting for jobs to reopen up, are those waiting to get into the apprenticeships. Of course, COVID-19 has made it harder for apprenticeships to open up. So some are delayed by a few months, but we're actively in conversations with each one of those unions and apprenticeships to see when and where we can place our women. I think because we have such an excellent reputation and over the past 20 years or more have cultivated these strong relationships with the unions, they do turn to us when they're looking to meet these goals. We are also good advocates ourselves. So if you ever are if you have a job and you're saying that you would like to have more women on the job and your subcontractors are saying there's just no women there, give New a call. My colleague Eric Antigal is on the phone constantly showing that there are women that are ready to work, women that are trained, women that are boots on the ground, ready to serve, and you know, we have them available. So we ourselves are strong advocates, and of course partnerships with Nycetc and the building trades have really solidified that.
I think that's fantastic, Kate. I'm up next for the question. Is that right? Is there any other questions from the crowd? What I know Rick is managing a lot of the questions. If you want to send him those notes in the chat, we're happy to bring them forward. I guess I'm just excited to be on here. You know, like I don't have another question. So I don't know, is there anything else, Kate, that you want to highlight, or Finiowski, that you have?
Well, I can have questions and follow up, and I really going like to Joey. I think your effort in bringing all these different organizations to look at what can be done, and I particularly was very impressed with your guiding principles in terms of how we wanted this kind of recovery to ensure that it can be as inclusionary as possible. Are there any challenges, and we are having these discussions of the fiscal crisis for the city if we do not receive federal aid, the private sector trying to question what are they going to be doing with the changed nature of work. What do you think are the approach that you are following to ensure that you are part of those conversations and the groups that you are representing really have participation in the recovery, however fast or slow might be?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. So while we're an association that is responsive to our membership, and as I mentioned, our membership is comprised of the nonprofit organizations and human service organizations that are providing the direct services for people and for workers, we are very closely connected with our employer partners and the different business associations in the city. So in fact, last month, we announced publicly the creation of our own business council that we're calling the New York City Workforce Business Council, that is comprised of a number of different leaders across the business community in different industries. So the 5 chambers that are representing the boroughs are represented on this council. Different local economic development corporations like the Long Island City Partnership, organizations like the Association for Better New York, the Partnership for New York City, Tech NYC. But then you also have think tanks and research institutions like Accenture and HRA Advisors and Regional Plan Association and other organizations on that group as well. So while we are responsive to the needs of our public and in our attempt to ensure that we are getting folks actively trained and hired for the opportunities that currently exist, we also need to be very responsive to the changing nature of work. One of the first things that was really that became really relevant to me at the start of the pandemic was, as much as I was concerned about the health pandemic and those medical concerns and conditions, I was very concerned, and have been for a long time, concerned about the future nature of work and the impact of automation and technology on jobs. And so what became a pressing concern at the beginning of the pandemic was, as these companies were shutting down, whether it was temporary or permanently, that we had essentially accelerated the next 10 years of the future of work. And so all the jobs that were predicted to either have been lost or have changed over the next year, the 10 years by 2030, we basically fast forwarded to that moment in time. And so we became very invested in making sure that we were bringing the business community and different industries to the table as quickly as humanly possible to ensure that our advocacy was on the right path in terms of the types of jobs we wanted to see and we wanted to, and the types of positions. But that also, while that is informing our advocacy, we also have to take a human capital approach first and foremost. And it's about ensuring that people always have access to employment opportunities, not simply the types of jobs that that we believe the business industry is going to create. There needs to be some, thoughtful and informed pushback as well to ensure that there are protections in place and that our people can always have employment opportunities to continue to support themselves. But we were thrilled to have their participation in the Recovery for All report. As you saw, it was an incredibly diverse group. A group that you generally, if I would, challenge anyone to take a look and see if they could find a group as diverse as that one represented. And that's why the recommendations that we provided were, we're focused on people. We're also focused on businesses and public works initiatives and other things that would help to kind of catalyze growth within our economy. But there were, different recommendations that you would often not necessarily see in the same room. You saw recommendations in terms of incentivizing the business community's growth, but also recommendations for testing universal basic income, because that's not something, while we haven't necessarily publicly issued support for that in the past, it'd be hard to not consider that during a period of time when we were seeing 20% unemployment. And so really thinking through creative solutions was really important, and having the best minds or as many of the best minds as possible in the room to discuss that was really pivotal. So we were thrilled with the outcome and thrilled with the response. And now comes the difficult work of advocating for a number of the priorities that we've listed in there.
Okay. Thank you, Joy, for that response. Chelsea, do you have
Yeah, I think I do have a couple of questions coming from the audience. And so one, and it's similar to what you're talking about, Joey, and this is for Kate as well. I know Kate mentioned that there are people who have lost their job through the pandemic, and that women are typically first, and that's frustrating. Do we see that there is a start to coming back, and kind of what you're talking about, Joey, and in terms of getting people back to work? Is that, or is there still a sense of fear of like the unknown, and maybe a second wave that will cause people to pause before they bring people back to work? Are you seeing anything like that as you go forward with your work?
I personally do see it new that construction opened up back on June 8th, and our placements started to trickle in, but now it's been ramping up even more. Since over the summer, since June, we've had 48 placements, which we weren't expecting that many. That's actually quite a bit for new placements. And then there's also the tradeswomen that were just called back onto the job. So there was the out of work list started to dwindle. That percentage is now much lower. Like I mentioned, in March, it was 65%. Right now, we're seeing a lot of our women are already back into the on-sites. So construction is back. We feel that the construction sites have also been working really hard to make sure that their site safety is up to higher standards than normal. And they've really addressed the covering PPE, making sure that anything that's COVID related or pandemic related has really been covered across the board to make sure that their workers are safe. And they've also been really working very hard on their DEI efforts. So we've been really proud to work with and partner with a lot of people, and happy to help further along their efforts and make even more impactful efforts on those cases. But our placements are going up. We're happy to talk more about signature projects in order to increase that as well.
Thank you, Kate. And this actually connects well with a couple of questions that we received that I'm combining. Coming from actually one of our sponsors, Wayne Crew from the National Academy of Construction. One of the very successful programs to connect high school with the profession is the ACE mentorship program, which I bet all of you are very familiar with. And in New York, we have a very robust, very strong program. And the question becomes, how are you connecting with that in order to create a pipeline? You said that you already need a high school diploma in order for individuals to, for women to join your training program. But what are your connections to the ACE? And then we also have a question from Migara Hevasitarana, who asked the question, how you are connecting with the CTE programs in the school system in New York, and bringing them along and providing them a view of an opportunity or a career path that they can follow. And so those are the questions to both you, Joey, as well as Kate.
Sure. So NEW does have a Young Women's Initiative, which starts at age 16, in which we work with high schools in New York City and the surrounding areas in order to introduce non-traditional employment to those young women. We also provide a Young Women's Initiative boot camp, which is a 2-week taste of what our training is like. We have found that many of those young women, especially if they were age 18 or 17 on the cusp of turning 18, did come back to NEW to enroll in our programming, which is wonderful, because starting early on in a trades career can bring you in that middle class wages, those 6-figure positions sooner, and brings you to an age earlier in life in which you can be more comfortable. So it's wonderful in order, to capture the audience of a high school student and show them the what can be in a trades career early on. I love ACE program. I think it's amazing. I have been a fan for a very long time, following nonprofits in New York City for a long time and nationally. So while I know that we've worked with ACE in the past, I think that, you know, reaching out to them and creating and establishing an even stronger relationship, especially right now, is a wonderful idea.
Yeah, and go ahead. No, it's okay. Go ahead.
No, Joey, your thoughts on those partnerships coming from an earlier age to introduce to these careers in these areas.
Yeah, I wouldn't speak directly to ACE, but just more to the initial point that you raised in terms of connective tissue between the education programs and job and workforce development organizations. I think that historically we haven't done a particularly good job of connecting that tissue together. I think the educational system overall serves a very specific purpose, and sometimes it's not directly linking that purpose to employment. And I think there's work to be done on that front, on the workforce development side, connecting with education as well as education organizations, working more directly with job training providers, particularly for from a learning and curriculum development perspective, but also because we are organizations that work very closely with employers on a regular basis, understand what those needs are. But in order to, I think, to address this long-term systemic issue of getting folks into the appropriate types of jobs and really aligning their skills and interests at a very young age, we do need to more effectively connect education overall to the employment landscape. We do work very closely with CUNY and the different CUNY colleges throughout the system in order to make that happen. And I think they've done tremendous work over the recent years with regards to that. But there's a lot more work to be done there, and we definitely encourage involvement and partnership with Columbia University in terms of understanding how we can more effectively connect different degree tracks to the types of employment opportunities that exist today and for the future.
Thank you.
Great. Okay, so I have another one coming in here. The question is, and Kate, in your presentation, you talked a little bit about how you quickly moved online and were able to do trainings online and virtually. The question is from Gautam Dasgupta, and I'm very excited about this question. How has the digital age, how can it reshape women's education to participate in the post-pandemic economy? So to me, it means, you know, how do we carry that forward? Once we come back from this, do we not use virtual at all? Or are you really thinking creatively about how this has worked in certain ways and incorporating it longer term in your programming? Or have you thought about that?
We have actually, especially since we find that many of the women that come to take part of our services or programs are caretakers, whether they're taking care of their parents or they're taking care of their own children or families, or they have other careers that they need to pursue while they're looking into this education. As many of us, when I went to Columbia, I worked full time and took classes at night. So that's a commonplace thing that we all need to do. So I think this virtual environment has actually made training easier and actually put it more directly in the hands and gave more ownership to the students. There was a higher level of responsibility to get the work done, to show up on time, to make sure that you have the requirements that you need to pursue this type of education. What I will say, if we're able to continue moving forward, and what new needs for the future is access to tablets to those low-income individuals that are seeking out our services, so that we can loan them to them and be able to pass them on to the next student, the next student, the next student. You know, one of the cash assistance things that we were able to do is that we recently had a student come to us to tell us that it was between paying their Wi-Fi or being late or low on their rent. And so, of course, we jumped in right away to pay their Wi-Fi access for the next few months for them, so that they continue to come to class each time. So, you know, in the past, we might have been able to say you can access Wi-Fi from the library or from one of the link systems that you see around New York City. but that's not always comfortable for people right now, especially those that are not used to being outdoors or outside, or, you know, they don't have access because the libraries aren't open or the community centers aren't open. So being able to have this cash assistance right now and then access to tablets in the future would be really wonderful. But I do believe that virtual training in this capacity has been amazing, has really helped, especially with the math. We found that, you know, being able to take the tests online and then the students having that test with them, seeing their results, taking it, you know, having it at home with them, going back to it, looking back and forth, we're getting higher test scores on the math. They're just able to work with us more closely, which who would have known that an in-person instruction versus online instruction, that would have been the case, but yeah.
Thank you, Kate. And I don't know, Joey, do you want to add something to that?
Yeah, I think that the virtual training is here to stay. To some degree, I mean, I think that you can't go back to exactly the way things were. And I think this is, it's evident in the fact that so many of our organizations had to shut down and immediately either shift to virtual, or they weren't able to provide any training at all during a period of time. And we, you know, conducted a survey that touched about 120 plus organizations within our membership and outside of that. And so in order to continue to serve the folks that they were serving, they needed to move into a virtual format. Many of the folks that we provide services for throughout the New York City system are people that would fall into the essential workers category. They're people that are, you know, currently working low wage jobs that require, you know, a plethora of different supports that the types of organizations that are part of our membership, including new, provide to their clients. And so virtual, I believe, is here to stay. I think one of the things that we need to address first and foremost is that there's a portion of the population that was not able to continue to learn virtually because of a number of different reasons, but one being lack of broadband access or access to necessary hardware like an iPhone or a laptop. You know, we have obviously a system here that wasn't designed to have you know, 4 computers in the same household at the same time. There isn't enough hardware on the planet to currently support the need that we currently have. And that's, you know, it sounds funny, but it's actually true. We you know, are unable, the companies that are currently under contract to support even the K-12 system and providing laptops have not been able to sufficiently provide all of those laptops for the students that require them right now. So that we need to build a system right now to support this new environment of learning, because I think people are going to require some type of hybrid model, in person, because people will need that and crave that and want that, you know, normalcy. And some of the skills that are being provided require you to have hands-on training. And then you will, you know, move also to this virtual learning environment as well. And I also want to emphasize that this is, you know, ultimately this is going to, this new normal of virtual learning is going to more heavily impact women. You have women that are, you know, leaving the workforce either temporarily or permanently as a result of, you know, caring for their children and supporting their current virtual learning environment that is complicated and to say the least. You have women that are, you know, staying home and supporting elder family members, and that is a major concern for me in the workforce, because I think the strides that we've seen over the last couple of decades in terms of advancing women to manager levels and executive positions we're going to see that roll back slightly, and so I'm, you know, genuinely concerned about that. But in the new normal, virtual has to be a part of the process. We're now also reaching new people who wouldn't have participated in the programs in the past, but now can because of this virtual learning format. So there's an opportunity to really, I think, grow the types of job training programs that are providing services for, you know, new economy positions. But we need to think thoughtfully about how we do this. Have it as a reaction to, let's say, a second wave crisis or another crisis in the future that would require a lockdown. We need to think about ways to, you know, really formalize its incorporation.
Thank you.
Somehow we got you muted there.
Yeah, I think you just dropped. Chelsea, do you have another question, or?
I think it looks like I have one more question from Mohammed Sadiq. Do you have other types of state and city certification courses that you're offering beyond the OSHA 30? Very specific question.
Can you repeat the question? It just cut out for a second.
Oh, okay, sorry about that. Are there other types of state and city certification courses you're offering beyond OSHA 30?
So we do offer OSHA 10 for our core programming and OSHA 30 as part of like our advanced training programming. We will be offering some SST training, which we know that really puts a lot of our graduates above and beyond when it comes in terms of giving them advantage to be placed or picked for an apprenticeship. So that'll be starting soon as well. And those are things that we can do virtually. So those are the exciting things for us right now.
Again, I just want to say that this has been a very interesting. The work that you have been doing is amazing, and I think there is so much that we can learn from the situation. I really was very impressed, Kate, of what NEW is doing in terms of supporting the individual holistically. You know, just not the training, but you understand that the pandemic has affected them personally, family-wise. So you're looking at that context and that support. And I think that story about, you know, what is the priority, paying for the bandwidth or paying for rent, and you being able to help and taking consideration that, you know, and I think Joe is your comment, and we have heard that over and over and over, the pressure of, you know, you have now schools that are remote, and a lot of the way that society has worked put a lot of pressure on women to be the one that are taking care of both the children as well as the seniors, and kind of balancing that. And I think your thoughts about how to use this very kind of challenging, impactful situation and look for the silver lining. What do we learn to make life easier for the generation that is going now to go into the workforce and take those trainings? How to look at that hybrid mode of what is important to do in person, what is important to do digital, and kind of challenge our status quo mentality on what the normal is. I think it's very powerful that, and we feel that we are in good hands with you both and Kathleen and Chelsea, thinking about this for our profession, our industry, and ensuring. I really like the team and the guiding principles that you presented, that you want this recovery for all, not just for selected few. You know, you will also have in Darwinism, and the evolution is the survival of the fittest, but we have to allow people to be the fittest. We need to support them so that they are fit to evolve in whatever this new economy is coming after this pandemic and this new normal that we are talking. So I just want to thank both of you, Joey, Kate, and please, my regards and best wishes to Kathleen for all you are doing. I have been fortunate to have been in some of your gala. I'm telling you, I have been in a lot of galas, and you were the ones, and I hope that the other galas do not feel bad, but when I heard the stories when they were presented in the podium, it's just the impact that you made in people's lives, coming out from the welfare role to be self-sufficient, you know, people that had a hard life coming up as teenagers and finding that construction can be a welcoming place if everything is right, and that the people can, you know, women can stand their ground and be there. And I think it's just very rewarding to see what you have done, and so I'm so thankful that you're continuing this throughout your this pandemic. I also would like to thank Chelsea for all her work with PwC, ensuring that we also do this for everyone in our industry and ensuring that we get everybody involved in this participation. I also would like to thank our collaborating organization, AEC New York, AIA New York, ASCE, CSU, ENR, NAC, NICO, and NOMA. I also would like to thank past speakers and moderators. We have Dick Anderson, the President Emeritus of the New York Building Congress, on the call. We also have Wayne Crew, who asked a question. He's the General Secretary of the National Academy of Construction, and we owe him thanks because he was the one that suggested that this lecture be part of the series. He thought that it was very important to have a lecture on the employment opportunities for women in the AEC industry and in particularly the construction trade. So thank you, Wayne, for those suggestions. We also would like to thank Lisa Black, the Director of Cultural Belonging and Social Ethos at the American Society of Civil Engineers, Tanya Pope, Assistant Vice President for Supplier Diversity and Program Introduction here at Columbia University, Daniel Sarelli, New York City Chief Climate Policy Officer and Director of One NYC, Eric McFarland, Deputy Commissioner for Infrastructure at New York City Department of Design and Construction, Mohammed Sadiq, another one that asked a question, Chief Engineer of the Office of the Queensboro President, Yves Michel, Project Executive and Chief Architect of the MTA Consortium and Development, for being present and participating and asking very insightful questions. I also would like to thank especially to all of you out there in offices, agencies, and at home throughout New York City and around the world for taking the time to listen today. Continuing educations are available for architects, and please send us email to cbips@columbia.edu if you have you would like those credits. I also would like to thank the team at Columbia. Let me tell you, without them, nothing will be possible. They are the Wizard of Oz that makes everything works. The magic happen. I would like to thank Michael Smith, David Chitanawa, Rick Bell, with whom we would not be possible. And we also would like to thank John from our Teachers College, and who helped us in providing the club's caption. We want to thank him for all his support. Our next speaker next week on 10/27 will be Mark Gardner, Principal at Jacklish Gardner, Advocacy Director of Nycetc NOMA, and Design Award Chair at AIA New York. My co-moderator and responder will be Samantha Josbach, President of Nycetc NOMA and founder of Studio 397. Our speaker for the following week on the 3rd of November is Pascal Sablan, AIA NOMA Lead APA, the founder and principal of Beyond the Built Environment, and President-elect of the National Organization of Minority Architects. The co-moderator and respondent will be Tanya Adair, principal at Splice Design. We also want to encourage you to participate tonight in the New York City Architectural Biennale, which is, has the theme Social Inclusion in the Workplace and in Design. For more information, please visit New York Architecture Biennale.org. And I would like to thank Lance Brown for all his support and work on this in this lecture and the Biennale. And finally, I would like to, for all of you, to thank you. Please stay tuned for the final 2 talks in the series on November 10 and 17. And thank you for joining us today. Thank you, Chelsea. Thank you, Jose. Thank you, Kate, for being here. Thank you so much. So have a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you.